So I want to welcome everybody to the District Attorney's Office on behalf of the 300 or so employees at this office. We appreciate you being here. Today we're going to discuss an anti-gun initiative in schools. Unfortunately, in this calendar year alone, there have been nationally 13 school shootings in 13 weeks. We don't have to look very far up to our neighbor in the north, Denver, last week, and the horrific images coming out of Nashville just this week. I can tell you as a DA, in my short time as a DA, one of my biggest nightmares is a school tragedy like this. And I know that it is the biggest nightmare any parent would have in this community. So I want to make sure it's emphasized that this is a collaborative effort, and that's why you see the individuals behind me, but I do want to point out some of the folks that are here. I want to thank all of our special guests and everybody that's come here, but let me point out some folks. We have the city of Albuquerque. I think the mayor is on his way if he's not here yet. We have Albuquerque Police Department Chief Medina. We have city councilors here. I'm very grateful to all of you for collaborating with us on this. We have the U.S. Attorney, Alex Ibaez, here. There he is. I'm very grateful for his participation in this and his involvement and his office's involvement. The County of Bernalillo has been amazing on their support for this collaborative. We have the county manager, Julie Morgas-Baca. County attorney, I think, is here, Ken Martinez. We have county commissioners and, of course, Sheriff Allen. APS and other schools that are here in the county. For example, we have APS Superintendent Scott Elder here. We have APS board members. We have APS Police Chief Steve Gallegos. We have the principal of West Mesa High, I believe, Michelle Torres. Head of School of Albuquerque Academy, Julianne Puente. Head of School Bosque School, Jesse Barry. I know that recently access to guns for minors was a topic in the legislature. I know that Representative Pamela Herndon spearheaded that. She's unable to be here, but I believe Alfred Mathewson may be here, her husband. It doesn't take much of a memory to remember just almost 2 years ago, this community waking up and understanding that Benny Hargrove had lost his life at Washington Middle School. No one has lived that tragedy more than the Hargrove family, and the entire community grieves. And his grandmother, Vanessa Sawyer, is here. Thank you for being here. Also, it just so happens there's a student, an East Mountain senior in school, who is graduating this year and going on to UNM, but she, one of her senior assignments, and this isn't the most fortunate thing for her, but one of her senior assignments was to shadow me, and today happened to be the day she's shadowing me. And so Layla Gonzalez is back there in the back as well. So let me kind of get right into what this is about. There are three main components of this anti-gun initiative in schools: enforcement, informational, and educational. Let me talk about enforcement first. There is zero tolerance for guns on school property. There are no guns allowed at school. The law is specific. It's 30-7-2.1. It's the unlawful carrying of a deadly weapon on school premises. So, to be very clear, no guns are allowed on school property or at school events. For students, that means no gun in any way in your possession, period. No guns on your person, no guns in your backpack, no guns in your locker, no guns at all. Anyone who is in possession of a firearm on any school campus will be immediately arrested. A juvenile will be prosecuted in juvenile court charged as a felon. An adult will also be arrested immediately if they come onto campus with a firearm and will be charged as well with a felony. There will be a state prosecutor on call 24/7, 365 to work with law enforcement on making sure that we have the necessary tools to arrest, get an arrest warrant, and prosecute this case, whatever it may be. There is zero tolerance, and there are no excuses. I'm so glad the U.S. Attorney is here as well, because the federal statutes, specifically 18 U.S.C. 921 and 922, under federal law, there are no firearms allowed within 1,000 feet of a school or on a school. So you have a state law that prohibits it, and you have a federal law that prohibits it. The U.S. Attorney and I and this office are committed to work hand in hand in prosecuting any and all adults with firearms on school grounds. There will be zero tolerance and no excuses. I want to emphasize this. Don't even think about bringing a gun on school grounds in Bernalillo County. You will be arrested and you will be prosecuted for a felony. The second part of this is the informational part of this zero tolerance anti-gun initiative in schools. And as I've already mentioned, Bernalillo County has been tremendous in working with us. They have a sign shop. One of these signs will be posted at every single school in this county, public and private. Maybe more than one, depending on the campus. But we will make sure, and I'm very grateful to the county for this, and the fact that these aren't cheap. I understand that. Hello, Mayor, welcome. But this is really, I think, a wonderful way to make sure that everybody around the school campus gets the message on a continual, constant basis. Let me put that down here. Also, APS, and they have been fantastic to work with as well, has agreed, and we're all going to collaborate on making sure that every family in APS, and I know that the private schools will do this well, and the charter schools, excuse me, every school will send out the necessary messaging and emails to families and to students through social media and through the internet and through emails to make sure that there is no one that in any way participates in any school activity is not very well aware of this. Another part of the informational aspect of this is starting in the fall. Law enforcement, together with this office, prosecutors, as well as APS, will work together on public service announcements, and we will make sure that that gets a very good presence in social media and in regular media as well. I can tell you that APS takes this issue extremely serious. We take this issue extremely serious, and we want to make sure the information gets out to everybody. Finally, there's an educational component as well. Law enforcement in this office and APS will, this fall, will launch a curriculum. We'll develop a curriculum and launch it where we basically put cops and prosecutors in the classroom teaching students about the criminal justice system with an emphasis on guns and all the problems they cause, and to remind everyone about the fact that they are not allowed on campus in any way. Zero tolerance every single day. Let me just give you a few more examples, and then I'm going to turn it over to some other folks to say a few words. A child finds his dad's gun on the coffee table and brings it to school and brandishes it to a classmate. In that scenario, both the child and the parent will be prosecuted. Benny's Law will be going into existence in middle of June. Obviously, that is another law that immediately affects this kind of a situation. And let's not misunderstand things. I support the Second Amendment, but we need responsible gun owners. So the next example I'm going to give you is about being a responsible gun owner, in my mind. A parent stores his gun in his vehicle, doesn't take it out of his vehicle, and for some reason, a child drives that vehicle to school. In essence, because of this person leaving the gun in the vehicle, is turning a child into a felon. It is a felony to bring a gun on campus. There are no exceptions to that. So, finally, anyone who has a firearm on them within 1,000 feet of a school, that person is committing a federal crime. So my message to every student and every member of this community, and especially to the students, you may think that somehow bringing a gun to school might be cool, but it's not. Don't ruin your life by bringing a gun on school campus. So first, let me turn this over to the U.S. Attorney, Alex Ubaez, for a couple of thoughts. And we're going to answer questions at the end of this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Alex Ubaez. I'm the United States Attorney here in the District of New Mexico. And everyone deserves to feel safe in our community, and nobody more deserving than our children. I want to begin by expressing my condolences to the families and loved ones of those of the victims in Nashville, in Colorado, to Miss Vanessa, who is here with us today, as well as our gratitude to the former teammate in Nashville who called the police, to the law enforcement officers who responded in each of these situations and ran towards gunfire to protect our children. Our country owes each of you a debt of gratitude. As a crimes against children prosecutor myself, and a father of 3, the loss of young life strikes at my core. And so I mourn with each of you. And that's why we as a community are gathered here today, to stand up ready to uphold justice. And that's why prosecutors in my office work daily with Albuquerque Police and the District Attorney's Office to charge those who drive violence in this city in federal court. And we are laser focused on our intake. We're looking at those who are stirring and driving and committing violence here in our streets in our city. And those folk can look forward to seeing me across the street in front of a federal judge. That's why we bring resources like ATF's NIBIN, Mobile NIBIN unit here to Albuquerque to help solve gun crime. That's why we invest heavily in community violence intervention efforts, and why we walk these streets with these partners to bring peace to our community. And I wish I could tell you all that it will be okay, and I cannot. But I assure you that while we feel sadness, we will not despair. That while we may feel fear, we will not hide. And while we may be frustrated, we will not give up. Because cynicism is a choice, but hope is a better one. We can't be everywhere. And you don't want us to be everywhere. Right? Our children deserve open playgrounds. They deserve to not have to walk through metal detectors. They deserve schools that don't look like prisons. This is our city. This is our home. Let's treat it with respect. Let's be vigilant. Let's watch for the warning signs. Let's alert law enforcement. Let's not assume that somebody else will step up to protect us. We must stand together for this community. Stand with us. Our children's lives depend on it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. U.S. Attorney. Thank you, Alex. Mayor, you want to say a few words? I know you were late to the party, but Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, and I know I was at a different party with homeless veterans that I think half of us were at, so we should have carpooled. But listen, first and foremost, when we think about our city, we know whether what's happened all across America or what's happened in Albuquerque, that this is a real issue. And it only takes those of you who have children or grandchildren who are school age to realize how real this is for our kids, even in elementary school. You know, we all have our family stories to share, and as I think most people know, my kids are in elementary school at APS. And, you know, to my surprise, coming home with all sorts of, you know, ALICE training, and I forget the different acronyms, but our kids train for this. This is how bad of an issue guns and violence in schools is. Now, it's important that we do that training, but it's also important that we each find a way to try and lessen the chance of something tragic happening. And so for us, I know that it comes down to this approach that I think many of us have been talking about, even through our Metro Crime Initiative. And the approach is basically this. Everything that happens in our city is our responsibility. And people like to say, well, you know, so-and-so should have done that, APS should have done this, Rio Rancho should have done that. If you do not have an answer to how you are helping some government agency or our schools deal with gun violence, you have to take on that responsibility. And in many ways, that is what I think is so special about what we see here today. We have everyone owning their part of the problem. The DA and our law enforcement agencies understanding what they can do and taking the initiative to say we can use existing law, but we can do this, and we can try and keep more guns out of schools. We see our law enforcement agencies saying they're going to enforce this, and they're going to work with them. And we see, I think, our community saying that they have a role to play too, and this is in many ways what Benny Hargrove Law is all about. Families have a responsibility. Unfortunately, yes, you have the responsibility to take care of your firearm for your kids. That is your duty. That is the way you reduce gun violence in our city as well. And so for me, this is a wonderful next step in that same notion that the Metro Crime Initiative is built on, which is that sometimes each agency is leading the way, like the DA is here and the Department of Justice, and we're grateful for that. And sometimes you're supporting, where it's APD and it's the city saying, we got your back. We're going to help reduce gun violence too. And so I do believe that this is going to continue. We know that we have now violence intervention programs for the first time in APS's history in partnership with the city and the DOJ at Washington Middle School. We have de-escalation and violence interruption programs at West Mesa for the first time in our city's history. And I think you all know why those two schools were the first two schools to have that. This is a reflection of the One Albuquerque spirit, and this is a reflection that we may have challenges in our city. We may have violence in our city, but we will not give up on our children. Thank you to everyone up here who also believes in that with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. APS Superintendent Scott Elder.
First, I'd like to thank District Attorney San Bregman, our law enforcement partners, Bernalillo County, and the city of Albuquerque for stepping up and helping us address what's become a common problem. So far this year, we've dealt with 13 incidents involving guns on Albuquerque Public Schools campuses. It's disruptive to the learning environment. It's left many of our staff, students, and their families fearing for their safety, and quite frankly, it's unacceptable. We've had a steady chorus of students and staff demanding that we do something about the gun threats on their campuses. And the fact that each of you has taken the time to be here today shows that you're listening. I want to stress this isn't an APS problem, it's a community problem, and that's why I'm grateful to be here with the district attorney, with APD, with the sheriff, and with so many of our other partners. It's going to take every one of us to get our arms around this issue. We're taking a key step today by making it abundantly clear that anyone caught with a gun at school in Albuquerque will face severe consequences. For APS students, that means an automatic 1-year expulsion, but it also means being arrested and prosecuted. At APS, we're taking other steps to keep students safe. These include installing locks in all 6,900 classrooms in the district to allow staff to lock doors from the inside, giving local law enforcement the ability to take control of live cameras at our schools, implementing ALICE training, which encourages students and staff to evacuate and run from danger when possible. And we're increasing violence intervention programs and interventions for our students. We have a great partnership with Crime Stoppers, with our counselors, letting students know that there's a safe place to discuss if there is a concern or they're fearful and they fear there may be an issue with a gun. I mentioned a few moments ago this is a community issue, but it's also a national issue that everyone is struggling with. Just this week, 3 children and 3 adults were shot and killed at a Nashville Christian school. Last week, 2 administrators were wounded at Denver High School, allegedly at the hands of a 17-year-old. My heart goes out to these communities, but that's not enough. If you have a gun, keep it secure. And if you become aware of any threats to a school, say something and urge your children to do the same. We all have a role in keeping our schools safe.
Thank you. Commissioner, would you like to say? Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. As you all know, I started out working in gang intervention programs, and no, it's not a Netflix movie. It's my real life. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I lived on this side all my life, and I just want to come here today to support this, support the district attorney, support the sheriff, APD. My vision is a little different, I guess. I want to make sure that the kids that live in my neighborhood, the kids that are now the children of the people I grew up with, do not start their life as a felon. Do not start your life on the wrong path. And just bringing a gun to school will do that. That will start you down a way that is going to be very hard for us to fix later down in your life. So I wanted to be the face today to look at me, and so I can talk to all the students and all the children out there. Guns are not a toy. It is not something cool to take to school. This is serious. We cannot go in the direction that we have been going in. I had a person come to my office saying, you know, my children, I've trained them all on how to use a gun. They all know how to use all my guns. You know, why do I have to lock them up? Why do I got to keep them away from my children? And I said, good for you. I've also taught my children how to shoot a gun. But have you taught your children how to deal with their first heartbreak? Have you taught your children how to deal with their first mental breakdown? Because if they have access to your guns, that's going to be the first path that they take. So it's not about just fixing one side of a problem, but being the solution as a community to both sides of the problem, which means we are not against the Second Amendment right for you to own a gun. We just want you to. And I did pass a resolution as a county commissioner with my Republican colleague, Lonnie Talbert, on what responsible gun ownership is. And if you own a gun, you are responsible for that. And if your child gets a hold of a gun, you are responsible for that. So I'll end with this. If you cannot afford a safe or a gun lock, you cannot afford a gun. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sheriff?
No, thank you all for being here, and thank you for everybody that's behind me for the collaborative effort. Look, it's simple. Our children don't feel safe at school and they can't learn. Our teachers don't feel safe at school and they can't teach. Our parents don't feel comfortable while they're at home, while either their loved one who's a teacher or their child is at school, and they are worried if they're going to come home. We don't want children to start off on the wrong path of being a felon and being in the criminal justice system. It's simple. Don't bring a firearm on school campuses. Make sure you're safe and make sure it's a learning environment, and do everything you can to better your community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Chief?
You know, I want to thank everybody for being here today, and I think, you know, as I listened to everybody speak, I was like, man, you guys stole my speech. But there's a lot of good things that were said and things that we need to remember as a community. This isn't an APS problem. This isn't an Albuquerque Police Department problem. This is a city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, state of New Mexico problem. This is something that's plaguing the entire nation. We know that we do not have the resources to put an officer at every single school within Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, and the state of New Mexico. Not even this nation. But we know it's the most important thing we have to do is protect our kids that are trying to learn. And being a brother to a sister who's about to retire from APS, I want every teacher to feel safe. I have a daughter and a son-in-law who are also teachers, and we want them to be safe. And I think the biggest hope that we have is as I look around this room and I look behind me, I don't see city leaders. I see friends. I see friends that I've shared sorrow with. Me and Chief Gallegos have had some difficult phone calls over the past couple of years. And I see individuals that I know I could reach out to each and every time and they will help us. And I think that's the biggest hope we have in this current environment is we are at a place where we have the best partnerships I've seen in my 28 years. We have our best partnership with the United States Attorney, and I think that office would attest to that. I have a sheriff that I could speak to. I have a DA that sometimes we don't always agree, but the next day we call each other and say, tomorrow's a new day, and we're here for the same things to make things safe. We have to continue to work with one another. We have to continue to have these conversations, and we have to continue to bring solutions. And the days of us being divided along lines and us being divided and having individuals just create issues for everybody else have to end. We all have to get in the sandbox. We all have to work together. And we have to be the eyes and ears for our community. Because many times it is not just a gun being left on a table like I heard mentioned earlier today. It is somebody that's going through some kind of mental breakdown. And a family member has seen it. And they know the direction the person is going, and they live with guilt the rest of their life because they didn't report it and ask for resources. The mayor started a new program, our community safety department, and they go out each and every day and they help individuals who are in crisis. We can't be afraid to make that phone call, and we need every single member of this community to be looking out for the kids and to make sure that when we say something that's not right, we report it to somebody, and we make sure somebody is looking into it. Because the last thing we want is something to happen that somebody had information about that they just didn't feel they should tell anybody. Let's make it okay to voice when we're concerned about people, and let's continue this trend that we've developed over the past several years where we work with one another and we don't care about credit. We care about making the community safe. And for that, like I said, I look behind me and I see some of the best friends I've had and the best people to work with. I don't just see city leaders. So to each and everybody behind me, thank you, because there's never been a time that I've made a phone call and I haven't gotten help from each and every one of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I don't know if there's any, I think that's everybody. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the school initiative and about our collaboration up here, and I'm grateful as well, obviously, to work with all these people. This is as important as of an issue as there is in our community and in this country right now, quite frankly. And I want to make sure everybody knows there is zero tolerance for guns at schools in every way, shape, and form. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the media if there is any. Yes?
Dia Bergman, quick question. You know, a lot of schools already have signage, no weapons allowed on campus, no drugs allowed on campus. It hasn't stopped students. You wouldn't be unveiling this if you didn't think it would work. Why do you think this will work this time around?
Well, I don't know that every school has this, and this is a very straightforward message, I think, as you can see. Gun-free zone, I mean, we are going to post this, and we're putting everybody on notice once again, and that this is the way it is. There is no allowance. There's no excuse. There's zero tolerance. And every school in this county, hopefully, in the very near future, and that takes a lot of work, but we're going to get it done, is going to have at least one of these signs at an entryway or an exit, but we're going to make sure it's there because we think it's important. It's not just us prosecuting, which we will do. It's not just arresting the person, which we will do, but it's also making sure the information is out in the community. This is part of that. Anything else? Yes, sir.
So 13 incidents in APS schools so far this year. How many of those have led to prosecution?
This year, I can't specifically address that. I can only tell you the following, that this is clear because I've checked with our deputy district attorney in charge of juveniles. I did that just this morning. My understanding in the last year is there's been no one that's had a gun that we've been able to show that they have had a gun on campus that has not been prosecuted. So we believe we are 100% prosecuting. We are going to continue that, and one of the reasons for that, for this, is to remind people that we will do so. So I don't know of any case that we haven't prosecuted where there's been a gun on campus. Anything else?
This one might be for Superintendent Elder, but sort of the same question. How many in those 13 incidences resulted in expulsions?
Oh, 13.
13.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, so my question is for Alex. You told us that kids, we don't want to treat kids with like going in through metal detectors because that can be sort of criminal. But why can't we do that like for some short time measurement that can help our kids to prevent gun violence inside school? It can be just inside school. That can be a permanent solution or a short time solution.
Sure, there's many short-time solutions, but we're looking for the long-term one. I think that our kids, as I said, deserve to live free and wonderful childhoods. And the concept for me of having our kids as a matter of course walking through metal detectors, hidden behind fences, patrolled in hallways with guards and guns is terrifying. And so what we are doing is to institute, the DA is talking about, to make sure that folks know that it's not, it will no longer be acceptable to bring firearms to campus. And to build towards a world, which was all of our ask here for you today, and to the members of the public, to build towards a world where we look out for each other in our community, where we make that call to 911, to law enforcement, to somebody, to say, hey, this person is really struggling. We need to look out for each other in this community. We need to make our schools and our communities, our parks and playgrounds safe for our children again. Thank you.
Yes, question?
So if a student is caught with a gun on campus, they'll be arrested and prosecuted, but will there be any mental health resources, for the student if they need it?
Well, absolutely. I think that's always provided through the juvenile system, of course, and I would encourage that. This isn't just about prosecuting, but it's also about getting people help, of course. So I think that's done with all of the juveniles that get placed in the criminal justice system. They are evaluated and hopefully given the care or help they need. Anybody else? And there will be individual opportunities to speak with any of these folks, but go ahead, yes.
How soon could we see these signs up at schools?
Soon.
You know what, I would say within the next couple of months.
But there's a lot of schools. There's 100, how many APS schools in the county?
In the county?
Yeah.
I think 142.
There's 142 schools in the county, just APS, and then there's private schools as well, so there's a lot. So we're gonna get to it, but my goal, and I'm not the one out there putting up the signs, but my goal is that I hope that it's by the end of the summer, maybe by the beginning of the school year.
Can there be a class created by a psychologist or give them some sort of orientation weekly or every month to those kids so they can feel comfortable going to a psychologist if they're having any mental breakdowns or something that's happening within their self, that they can say it to someone and then be a shout out.
I think that's more of a question for APS, but my belief, go ahead.
Sure. So I would say that a very key component to any sort of anti-violence prevention program is intervention. And so making sure that our students are aware that there are people on campus, adults on campus, that are hearing them, that are reacting appropriately and getting them the support they need. So I won't want to get to a point where we have to react and prosecute and arrest. We want to deal with it before anything happens. And so that's a really key component to keeping our students safe, is they have to feel that they can talk to an adult on campus and that somebody will respond if they say, I really do need help.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, well, these folks are available if you want to visit with them individually, members of the media. Thank you all very much for coming. Let's keep everybody safe, our schools safe. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all.